Today we're in the city that never sleeps, the one that's so nice they named it twice, and its nickname is the Big Apple. That's right, we're in New York, New York. In 2022, is visiting NYC still worth it? Keep it locked to find out. What's good, YouTube? It's LUISGUSTO. Welcome back to my channel. Before we get into it, you already know what to do. Go ahead and finesse that like button. Subscribe if you are new to the channel. New York City is located on the eastern Atlantic coast of the United States at the mouth of the Hudson River. It's about 800 miles from Chicago. Nearby major cities include Boston and Philadelphia. To get to New York City from Chicago, we flew out of Midway International Airport to LaGuardia International Airport via Southwest Airlines. Getting around New York City is extremely easy thanks to their incredible and world-famous public transit system. We're talking not only the NYC subway, there are buses and ferries, the bike shares like City Bike, and various scooter and moped sharing.
New York City has so many different public transportation options, but I don't think anything is as unique as the Roosevelt Island tram, and it costs just $2.75. I have been on that thing so many times I've lost count, and it honestly never gets old. Those views crossing over.
New York City has such a fascinating and exciting history spanning several centuries. But for the purposes of this film, let's talk about 5 major points from New York City's history. Point number 1, like many other major US cities, this started off as Native American land. Tribes like the Lenape lived here for thousands of years. The Dutch were the first Europeans to visit New York City, and they established New Amsterdam around the 1600s. There are literally infinite things to do in New York, and tons of content has been made about the things to do in NYC, from YouTube, TikTok, Instagram. So why should you listen to me, a Chicagoan, telling you about the things to do in New York City? Well, I'll tell you why. Because it's your boy. Come on, I'm always gonna give you the best things to do no matter where we're traveling. So with that said, here are some of the best things to do while you're in New York. Central Park is arguably the world's most famous park. It is over 800 acres and dates back to the mid-1800s. It was designed by famed landscape planners Frederick Law Olmsted and Calvert Vaux. If those names sound familiar to you as a Chicagoan, it's because they also designed Jackson Park in the Windy City. There are so many things to do within the park, like a zoo, there's a sheep's meadow, famous bridges, picturesque views of the New York skyline. We are on the top of the rock, 70 floors above New York City. We have open air views of Manhattan. You can see Central Park, luxury residential skyscrapers, as well as Empire State Building, One World Trade, Chrysler Building. The views up here are just unbeatable. We're here at sunset. It's a little bit extra for these views because this is like a prime time, obviously, for photographers, filmmakers, etc. I think it's worth paying the extra $10 per person to get these sunset views. This is something that I always do when I come to the Big Apple. Show. New York City is broken up into the 5 boroughs: Manhattan, the Bronx, Staten Island, Queens, and Brooklyn. Each one of these boroughs consists of several neighborhoods, adding up to hundreds, like
Financial District, Midtown, Chinatown, Little Italy, Civic Center, Dumbo, and Battery Park City.
A New York neighborhood that may not be on your radar if you are a visitor is Long Island City in Queens. New York became a British colony in 1664. The Dutch basically handed it over without any sort of fight or war. You won't really find many remnants of Dutch history, but you will find a ton of British history. After the events of the American Revolution, New York became a US state in 1787. The High Line is a 1.45-mile open green space built on the former elevated New York Central Railroad tracks on the west side of Manhattan. It opened up in 2009 and since then has inspired countless other cities to do the same, like the 606 Trail in Chicago. Admission is completely free and it's a fantastic way to get in touch with nature. These are all native plants in the middle of one of the busiest cities in the entire world. Roosevelt Island is not something that you're gonna find on most New York City travel guides, but it's definitely a place that you'll wanna hit up, especially if you're more of an experienced traveler and looking to do something a little bit off the beaten path. Although there are about 4 or 5 paths that you can take to get here, including a bridge from Astoria, the subway, but my personal favorite way to get over to Roosevelt Island is by taking the tramway from Manhattan. There are a couple of different historical spots that you'll definitely want to see while on Roosevelt Island. The first one is right behind us. It's City Hospital. It's a Gothic hospital that once served smallpox patients, designed by James Renwick Jr., who you may know from St. Patrick's Cathedral in Midtown or Second Presbyterian on Michigan Avenue in Chicago. Behind me is the Queensboro Bridge, and the views here are phenomenal. It's a great time out here. New York City used to just be only Manhattan. That is, until the consolidation of the 5 boroughs in 1898. Brooklyn, Queens, Staten Island, and the Bronx all became part of New York City, catapulting it up the charts. The Metropolitan Museum of Art on 5th Avenue is one of my favorite museums in the entire world. When you're talking about the art and artifacts that you can see here, it's potentially endless. You got ancient Egyptian and Greek and Roman, American art, modern, contemporary, Oceania. There's a rooftop, cafes in here. You can literally spend your entire day inside the Met and not see everything. I wish we could do that today, but there are so many other things on the itinerary. Don't expect your New York City trip to be ordinary. There are so many different ways that you can plan your trip. The touristy option by going to places like Times Square and Statue of Liberty. You can go the more cultural, educational route by visiting some of the many museums around the city. You can also go the foodie route. I'm gonna grab myself a nice big slice. Check that out.
I got an onion bagel toasted with avocado garlic cream cheese.
They got their start in 1990 as a hot dog cart. But from there, they branched out. This is enough for 2 people. We just ordered 1 sandwich. Look at that. Look at that amount of meat. This is a huge, huge stack. Millions of immigrants have come to the United States via New York City. Ellis Island alone processed nearly 12 million immigrants from 1892 to 1924. As a Chicagoan, I am supremely interested in architecture. I don't care if we're talking about classic buildings or brand new luxury skyscrapers. And New York City certainly has its share of amazing architecture. In fact, it has the 2nd most amount of skyscrapers in the entire world. Here are some can't miss architectural highlights in Manhattan. One World Trade Center, U.S. Custom House, New York City Hall, Surrogates Courthouse, New York County Supreme Court, Manhattan Bridge Arch and Colonnade, Empire State Building, Chrysler Building, 30 Rock, Grand Central Terminal, the Helmsley Building, New York Public Library Central Branch, Federal Hall, New York Stock Exchange, St. Patrick's Cathedral. 3 Chicago architects with buildings in New York City include Daniel Burnham's Flatiron Building, Mies van der Rohe with the Seagram Building, and Louis Sullivan's Bayard Conduit Building. I've been to New York about 4 or 5 times now. One of the things still on my list though was Coney Island.
In the 1870s, very wealthy New Yorkers would come to Coney Island to vacation. This was a resort area before the Hamptons was ever a thing.
When I'm traveling, I love that retro vintage.
It doesn't get more vintage than Coney Island.
Throughout its hundreds of years of history, New York City has become the most populated city in the United States with more than 8 million residents as of 2021. In the comments below, let us know what city you'd like us to visit next. Peace and blessings.